The next morning at breakfast, Emily turned to Edward C. I think we must all drag ourselves out of the blues for Christmas, Edward C. The carnival will be closed Christmas Eve, so why don't you and the boys come over to my place for cocoa and molasses cookies? Would you like that? I suppose our faces showed our delight. It's an honor, Josh, Edward C. told me later. Emily keeps so much to herself I can't remember a time when she has invited any of us to her home. It's obvious that you and Joey and I are special to her. We began immediately to think of a gift which we might take to her on Christmas Eve. Joey thought of a box of candy would be right. I wanted to buy something more feminine, more personal. There were pretty bottles of perfume at one of the concessions. I very much wanted to buy perfume for Emily, but Edward C. was sternly practical. She needs money so much, Josh. With that family of growing boys, I think we should find a bright box and fill it with dimes, 10 dimes from each of us. Joey can polish them till they're shiny, and we'll get one of the ladies to tie a ribbon around the box for us. Emily will appreciate it, boys. Believe me. I know she'll appreciate it at this time more than she would either candy or perfume. And so we followed his advice, and the small box of silver did look like a very nice gift. It was not what I really wanted to give Emily, but I had to admit that Edward C. was probably wise in his suggestion. Emily would have very little occasion to wear perfume. I hoped, though, that a day might come when I could buy her something lovely, something right for a beautiful woman. The three of us, well scrubbed and brushed, went over to Emily's boxcar home early the evening before Christmas. She met us at the door, and for the first time I saw her dressed like a woman with no hint of clown about her. She wore a cotton dress, the colors of which were faded probably from many washings, but a lovely dress for all that, with a full skirt that swayed gracefully when she walked. But it was her earrings that made Emily look like a queen. Large, bright hoops that were much the same red-gold color as her hair. They swung against her cheeks, catching the light and looking very gay and splendid. Edward C. and Joey found words more easily than I did. They told her how beautiful she looked, how nice it was to see her in a dress instead of a clown's costume, how beautiful her earrings were. She smiled and stooped to kiss each of them on the forehead. Then she looked at me as if she were waiting for what I had to say. You look very nice, Emily, I told her, and she said, thank you, Josh, and kissed me too. Then suddenly, the evening was no longer wonderful for me. We stepped inside, and there at the table, with her youngest boy on his lap, and the other two beside him, sat Pete Harris, short and fat and glistening a little, but looking relaxed and pleased. Hello, hello, gentlemen, he called out in his raspy voice. How are you, Edward C.? Brought your boys with you, eh? Just look at young sport here. You're getting fat, boy. You're getting some meat on you. He poked Joey in the stomach and then held out his hand to me. How are you doing, Paderewski? He asked. Emily stood beside his chair smiling and looking happy. Pete surprised us with roast chickens and pralines. Now we can have a real Christmas party, Joey. The boys could hardly wait until you got here. Joey was beaming. He handed her the box of dimes. This is for you, Emily. From Edward C. and Josh and me, he said. Emily opened the package, her eyes shining at first and then filling with tears. She held the box of dimes over for Pete Harris to see. He nodded approvingly. That's a real fine present, boys, he said. Then he looked up at Emily. You couldn't ask for a nicer one, could you, hun? He called her hun. He spoke to my beautiful Emily as if she belonged to him. And in the next moment she was saying that the dimes from us and the earrings from Pete were making this the happiest Christmas she had known in a long time. And so Pete Harris had given her the earrings that made her look like a queen, and I, who wanted to give her something lovely and feminine, had been persuaded to share in a gift of dimes that would probably be used to buy grits and oatmeal for her boys. I think Edward C. saw the look of disappointment on my face, for he hurried to make an explanation to Emily. You know, my dear, Josh wanted to buy you perfume, and you're so lovely tonight that I'm sure I dissuaded him. You should have had gifts that were more personal, gifts that would have allowed us to tell you how pretty you are. She put her arm around the little man's shoulders, but she looked at me when she spoke. No, Edward C., you three couldn't have given me a finer gift than that box of dimes. And every time I use some of them for food or medicine, I'll say, this is my gift of white gloves from Joey. This is a lace handkerchief from Edward C., and this is another drop of French perfume from our French musician from Josh. Her words helped a little, not much, but a little. It would have been better if Pete Harris had kept quiet, but he didn't. He said, you were on the right track, Edward C. Emily needs those dimes. This ain't a year for lace handkerchiefs and perfume. Right, hun? But it was a year for earrings from Pete Harris. It was a long, unhappy evening. There was food and laughter. There was a moment when Pete Harris disappeared and returned a few minutes later wearing a mask and white beard, bringing small toys to Emily's children and a last-minute gift for Joey, a pocket knife. Obviously an old one with Pete Harris's initials carved in the bone handle, but a gift which nonetheless brought considerable joy to Joey. Later, all of us went across to the carnival grounds and gathered around my piano. While I played the old carols, the others sang, and the music under the quiet sky was beautiful. Emily and her boys with Edward C. sang some of the carols in the Cajun tongue, and they sounded sweet and strange, a little mysterious. It should have been a beautiful evening, but it wasn't for me. I was glad when I could get away and be alone. In the days that followed, I was edgy and unhappy. Joey noticed it and stayed away from me most of the time, spending many hours by himself practicing on Howie's banjo. One day on the grounds, a small group of people gathered around him as he sang and accompanied himself on the banjo. They liked the picture, I think, of the slender boy singing and strumming out a simple run of chords. They liked it so much that Harris allowed Joey to roam around the carnival grounds with his banjo. He picked up a little store of nickels and dimes in that way, but he didn't talk to me about it. I had been sharp with him on too many occasions lately. He left me to myself.